In our country, there is a political candidate who has seemed to have forgotten what the First Amendment entails. The First Amendment is a freedom of speech and freedom of religion, and what keeps church and state separate. My name is Alex May, and I'm going to be telling you why it's important to keep church and state separate and what we can do to prevent this from happening. Firstly, a little history. So, America was colonized by white people who came from Europe, and that is because of the Anglican government that was over there. They carried out the will of the Christian God through the king and his church, and kings were also the head of churches. They ruled the country and ruled the churches, so people had an issue with that and retaliated and saw that the Bible was the correct way to worship. And the king, in response to this, thought, nah, go establish your own place in North America. So they did. So they went to North America and started their own government, which was the Puritan government, and it established their right to rule and granted them it established that the right to rule was granted to them by a Christian God. So another Christian government didn't really play out well, ended in Salem witch trials and stuff like that. Not good. But this one dude, Roger Williams, was like, here's a different way to rule, or government, here's a different way to government, here's what I think. And they were like, no, arrested. And before he could get arrested, he fled to a different place, and he named it Providence, and him and his followers came up with a new government, which was democracy, where church and state are kept separate so that the government only has authority over civil issues. Yay! Which we love, which we have, which we are. And I got all this information from an article titled The Separation of Church and State History. So, yeah. So now that we know a little bit about how we got here and why it's good for us, because it didn't work out before keeping church and state together. So now that we know a little bit, let's move on to the real issues here. So the majority of the U.S. is Christian, and this was found out in a survey or a study in 2020 that said 64% of Americans are Christian. And this comes from another little article that I found about it. So the political candidate that I'm talking about is Trump. Woo, Donald Trump. Who would have guessed? So Donald Trump, he's smart, he's a businessman, he knows how to market, and what he's doing is he's marketing his campaign to the Christians because he is the Republican candidate, and the majority of Republicans are conservative Christians, so he's smart for doing that. I don't think he's a good political leader, though. But what Trump has done is he has started to confuse the First Amendment, I guess. He's just forgotten it's existed, and he's combining church and state and trying to force religion on people, and not cool. No bueno. So what he's done is he's made Bibles. He's selling Bibles that he has remade and put pictures of himself in there. Maybe, I think there might even be one with him photoshopped with Jesus, which is crazy. But I might be wrong about that, but the Christians are a little opposed to this. They're like, this kind of feels like mocking. It's not that cool, maybe don't do that. So that's the latest thing with him. But what is really concerning is what he promises to do when he is welcomed back into the White House. And I get this from another article from AP News. And basically what it says is what he plans to do with education. So what he plans to do is terminate the Department of Education. Odd, because the Department of Education is what is over all the schools in the country right now, in our country. So, what happens when that comes down, who knows? But then he wants to terminate it and also try and enforce schools to do something, but you can't do that without the Department of Education, so think. So what he's wanting schools to do is to pray. pray in school. And not every kid is a Christian. Not everyone is a Christian. According to that survey, 36% of people aren't Christians in the US, but that was 4 years ago now. 4 years ago, that was in 2020, and it keeps going down. So, not everyone is going to want to pray in school. Yeah, that's a little wild. Church and state are supposed to be kept separate. That's part of the First Amendment, and you're not supposed to change that. You're not supposed to force people to do anything. It's freedom of speech, freedom of religion. That's the way it goes. I don't know what he's doing. I guess he wants to be a little fun and break the rules, but it's just not right. It's not that cool. So yeah. And then some people would oppose me and be like, you know what, that's a good idea. And it's mostly Christians. It is. And I get all these facts from another article on ThoughtCo. So there's Christians that believe church and state should be together because the U.S. is a Christian, majorly Christian country. Brain fart. And people think that the U.S. having a secular government is a government that does not base their laws or policies on religion. But some people think that having a secular government is like disrespectful to the founding fathers. They are long gone. Okay? It's not that serious. And people are also concerned that having this type of government suppresses religion, but government and state are supposed to be kept separate. So I don't see the issue there. It's not suppressing other religions. Why would you feel like it's suppressing yours? And people also believe that without the U.S. having a Christian government, that Christianity will die out in the U.S. And it is shrinking, but it's not dying. It's still over half of the U.S. population is still Christian. So make it make sense, These people's arguments are valid. Their opinions are valid. But I personally just think they're wrong. And a way to prevent this First Amendment from getting broken, don't support Trump. It's okay if you do, but just know that he doesn't support your freedom of speech or your freedom of religion. He doesn't believe in that. He wants to mess everything up. I think, in my opinion. And he wants to set our country back 400 years to the Puritan government, to Christian government, and, I think that's going to upset a lot of people. Well, not necessarily that he wants to do that, but it just feels like it, We want to progress as a country, and with him thinking that doing that to possibly our children's education is not that cool. Really, it's not that cool. So, in my opinion, the way to fix that is to just not support him, really. Because there's some people that think he's a really smart and great guy, and that is okay. But, when he's ruining futures, it's not that cool. So yeah, church and state should be kept separate everywhere. I think that's a good idea. So yeah, thank you. Bye.